All right, we're just coming off of the weekend where the No Kings in America rallies have gone on. Some say they were a huge success, while others say they were a total flop. I guess it just depends on your perspective. To help me go through some of the biggest stories in the news, I have Seth Barron. Seth, thank you for joining me again.
Oh, absolutely, Stephen. It's always a pleasure.
So let me give my audience some background. Seth has been doing journalism for many, many years. He is an author. He's also joining the New York Post editorial board later in the next couple of weeks, and excited to have him on. You live right there in the heart of New York City. It's considered a sanctuary city, similar to Los Angeles, California. What do you make of the riots, the pushback, local Democrat governors fighting on behalf of criminals more than on behalf of American citizens?
Well, this is an old story. It's been going on for a long time. I mean, sanctuary status actually began under Giuliani, which may sound surprising, but the idea then was, okay, we've got these people here. We don't want them to not go to the hospital or not contact the police if there's a big crime. So we'll just kind of have this, don't ask, don't tell policy regarding, interactions with local government. Maybe you don't like that, maybe you do like it, but it kind of, it was a limited type of thing. It was extended basically under de Blasio's administration, starting in 2014, to mean, the police will not cooperate with the federal government unless they're forced to. They won't help ICE deport, gangbangers and serious criminals and so forth. So it really became something totally different from what it was supposed to be initially. I think what Trump is doing in terms of going after the sanctuary cities is important because, this is where people come because they know that they can hide out essentially and make a life for themselves illegally in America. So I'm for it. Regarding the pushback, I mean, that's to be expected. There's a lot of these groups in New York, for instance, which I know the best, but Chicago, LA, there are groups that are funded by, these nonprofit, non-governmental organizations that are funded by the city and state, ostensibly to do all kinds of, community outreach and provide services and so forth. But if you look into it, all they really do is organize people, immigrant communities and, other, I guess, disadvantaged groups maybe to be political actors. And so they essentially have this publicly funded apparatus of protesters. And that needs to be disrupted. And I think it's good that the government is finally starting to look at what's happening in these sanctuary cities.
Yeah, I think most Americans, at least on the maybe libertarian, independent, conservative side, when they start realizing, oh, wait a minute, it's my hard-earned tax money that's funding these riots, these rallies, these immigrant programs, the handouts, the hotels, the free cell phones, it starts to become very frustrating. Let me put up a clip here from President Trump earlier today, and we'll react to it.
I want them to focus on the cities because the cities are where you really have what you call sanctuary cities, and that's where the people are. I look at New York, I look at Chicago. I mean, you got a really bad governor in Chicago and a bad mayor, but the governor's probably the worst in the country, Pritzker. But I look at how that city has been overrun by criminals. And, New York and LA, look at LA. LA, those people weren't from LA. They weren't from California, most of those people, many of those people. And yeah, that's a focus. Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country. Of that, vast numbers of those people were murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails. They emptied their jails out into the U.S. Most of those people are in the cities, all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to happen.
Okay, so in that press conference, President Trump said he is calling on ICE to double down, specifically in New York, Chicago, and LA. You know it's the right thing to do. I know it's the right thing to do. Are we going to see even more riots like we did in Los Angeles?
I think that the left is organizing and they're planning to. I think what they're planning to do is repeat the 2020 playbook, which was as much civil unrest as possible, riots, threats of riots, arson, all of this supposedly righteous anger pouring into the streets. And then you have all the politicians saying, well, we know you're angry. We feel your anger. I think that's what they're trying to do. I'm not sure it's going to be quite as successful as it was 5 years ago. It's funny what President Trump said there. I mean, I think, look, he's characteristically hyperbolic. So I don't think Biden let in 20. I don't think anybody says that Biden let in 21 million illegal aliens. I mean, the total may be close to that. But I think the really interesting point he made is that the reason why they're going after the blue areas. Now, it's not so much that the Democrats want to bring the illegals in to vote for them, although ultimately, like down the road, that would be a great idea for them. But what they really want is what Congresswoman Yvette Clarke from Brooklyn revealed in a Zoom, interview last year when she was being questioned about, all the migrants who were coming to New York, and she said, "Well, she's like, I want the migrants to, just for reapportionment reasons. They want to plump up their numbers in New York and California, which are losing population and losing electoral votes. If you can cram as many illegal immigrants into these jurisdictions as possible, according to the census, they count towards congressional apportionment and, thus electoral votes. So that's really what's going on here. They don't really care if these people can vote or not. In fact, in a way, they kind of prefer it if they don't vote, because they know that these are blue cities, blue states. So the Democrats are going to win anyway. They just want more seats. So I think going after these jurisdictions, I think it's good. I know Trump has gotten some pushback because he's holding off on agricultural labor, illegals who work in hotels and those sort of industries. Look, I get that, but at the same time, it's probably better to go after the ones that are sort of more easy pickings in the cities and states, the blue cities and blue states where, the sanctuary jurisdictions, just, to send a message, and then he can go after those other ones.
Okay. I read, the focus was, first, let's go after the murderers, the rapists, the drug traffickers, the human traffickers. They're doing that. I think there's still plenty more that they can go after. And then it goes into phase 2 of everybody else. And I think it's been voiced like, wait a minute, we understand you're taking apart the Biden Jenga tower, right. But if you pull the wrong blocks, you could collapse the U.S. economy. So let's be careful. Let's be strategic about this. He is getting some pushback on that. But at the same time, like there's probably some wisdom to that. Whoever brought it to him, it must have made sense to him. Like, oh, wait a minute. Actually, if there's nobody picking the food, then, that could actually be a major problem.
Look, look, here's the thing. The left is correct that our economy is dependent on this type of labor. And that's unfortunate. We shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have created a second caste of non-citizen like laborers who do the dirty work for us and keep wages down for Americans. At the same time, you can't fix it overnight. So yes, we can restructure the labor market. We can restructure the economy. But like you said, maybe deporting focusing on agricultural workers, is that really the top priority? A lot of those people are migrant labor anyway, so they may go home of their own volition anyway. So, let's kind of do it in an intelligent fashion. Um, yeah, I mean, everybody would like to see all the illegals gone overnight. Realistically speaking, yeah, it would probably have a lot of knock-on effects that aren't so great. But if it's done in a more regular fashion, then wages can go up, and this kind of work will become more attractive to Americans. Ideally, we'll see.
Yeah. Let me show you something from the No Kings rally. There was instead of a kissing booth, you could take a Donald Trump doll and you could do a little bit of therapy. Let me go ahead and show this to you.
We were just talking about this morning. No! Don't! Bad boy! Bad! No!
All right. So it looks like Trump derangement syndrome is still alive and well.
Yeah.
I mean, did these No King rallies prove that Donald Trump isn't a king? I mean, the fact that they're able to protest, call him horrible names, to me sounds like a free country.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these people are not serious people. They're infantile. A lot of them, like those people, typify the worst of, like, I guess what's called the boomer mentality. Just completely self-centered, emotional, self-righteous, not actually informed. Yeah. The whole No Kings rally thing. Sure. I mean, look, it's like with the Handmaid's Tale women, like dressing up as though they are in danger of, becoming sex slaves, which, look, I don't want to be cruel, but is probably unlikely for many of them. I mean, in The Handmaid's Tale, if you recall, for anyone who's read the book or seen the movie, that there's different castes for the enslaved women. Yes, some of them are the breeder types, who are the sex slaves who have to go around in the red robes that all the women like to posture in. But there's also a lot of them are, Marthas, like women who just have to clean up and stuff, like the older infertile ones. So, you don't see a lot of women dressed up like that in these marches. But, something else about the No Kings March that I thought was funny, they held it on the day that Trump was having the 250th anniversary of the Army, so a big military parade. And people got a big kick out of the fact that the crowds weren't so big at the parade. And they do this with his inaugurations too. Nobody came to his inauguration, and look how many people came to Obama's inauguration. But the funny thing is, well, you got to realize that Washington, D.C., and the whole federal area around there, Virginia and Maryland, it's a Democrat redoubt. I mean, that's where everybody who is in the swamp lives. The entire economy of that area is based on federal government spending, contractors, lawyers, government workers. So, and they all vote. It's incredibly blue. So it makes sense that, I mean, you're not going to get tons of people from the area showing up for like Trump's rallies. I mean, if he held it out in the Midwest somewhere, it probably would have gotten like millions of people. So, I think that the left kind of overstates its huge success and its huge popularity regarding these types of things.
Yeah, that's a really great point. If 95% of Washington, D.C. voted against Trump,
right,
they're not going to show up to the rally. I like how they were like, oh, this guy's such a loser. He throws this parade on his own birthday. He didn't do the opening day of the U.S. Army, 250,
yeah.
I like how they try to like, oh, his birthday just happened. Like, same thing. His birthday happens to be on Flag Day. Like, oh, look at him trying to usurp the goodness and the goodwill of the American flag. It's like his birthday, like my dog's birthday is on my birthday. It just happened that way. Like I didn't make his mom give birth to a litter on that particular day, but it was a little bit odd to me that you had so many Democrats bad mouthing the parade. It's like it was one thing to badmouth Donald Trump. I get it. You're a Democrat. Your entire they have no policy other than we're not Trump, and
Right.
Trump is bad, and so is orange makeup. But then, like, they were bad mouthing the military, mocking the military. I thought that was kind of odd. Did you know your liver is the second largest organ in your body and responsible for over 500 vital functions? Yet over 30% of Americans have a sluggish liver, and most don't even know it. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Dose for Your Liver, a powerful science-backed daily shot designed to cleanse and protect your liver naturally. This tiny but mighty formula supports digestion, reduces bloating, boosts energy, and even improves sleep. In fact, in a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, 86% of participants lowered their liver enzymes by 50%. One shot of Dose equals 17 turmeric shots, and it's gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and 100% vegan. Your liver works hard for you every day, and it's time to return the favor. Support your body's filter with Dose for Your Liver and feel the difference from the inside out. Save 30% on your first month of subscription by going to dosedaily.co/Gardner or enter Gardner at checkout. Again, that's dosedaily.co/Gardner for 50% off your first month subscription.
I mean, not surprising. They always badmouth the military. The only time they started to like the military was when, under Biden, like the whole purpose of the military just became to promote LGBTQ plus that agenda. Then they seem to be kind of into it. Now they're against it again. Look, the military is one of the few institutions in America that hasn't been completely captured by the left. The military generally votes red. They tend to be patriotic. They tend to, like American values. They value, what's good about America. They don't like it because there's a tremendous amount of racial and ethnic diversity in the military, and it all seems to work fairly well, unlike in blue cities where that sort of thing where diversity doesn't have such great effects. Yeah. I mean, because like the thing about the military is diversity is not the greatest strength. Unity is the greatest strength. And the idea that an institution succeeds on that irks them. So sure, of course they don't like the military. And yeah, there people were laughing about, I don't know if you saw these memes and videos of comparing the U.S. Army, the U.S. Army parade to the Chinese military parades or these other ones. And I mean, at the same time that they're decrying Trump's militarism and like his supposed fascism, they're celebrating like the efficiency and the beauty of the People's Republic Army, like the Chinese Army. I'm sorry, the People's Liberation Army, and how beautifully in sync their marches are. So which is it? Do you like militarism or you don't like militarism? Or you just don't like the U.S. military? I tend to think they actually kind of like militarism as long as it's on their side.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. They seem to like anything when they're in control, but if Trump recommends something, then they just have to take the opposite position, or else they're out. Let me ask you about this. A Democrat congresswoman was sadly assassinated in Minnesota. It looks like it may have had something to do with being the only Democrat that voted against giving illegals free health care. And by free health care, I mean stolen from American workers who can barely afford their own health care. Anyway, this guy worked for Tim Walz. His wife worked for Tim Walz. He's been a Democrat. He's been involved in USAID. Now you have CNN and left-leaning media saying he obviously killed her because of Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. They're literally blaming Trump for this guy assassinating a Democrat who voted against free health. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, look, it's confusing. And who wants to get involved in like the mind of like some lunatic, some failed weirdo who had these crazy businesses. It's not clear what any of them really were. Who got a doctorate in education and then went to work in a 7-Eleven. I mean, these types run around, and look, there's all kinds of unstable, crazy people. I don't really feel like it's my job to place him on the political spectrum. You know what I'm saying? He may be a conservative Republican. He may be like a far left Democrat. I don't know. It's the same thing with like the guy who took a shot at Trump at his rally in Pennsylvania, the kid. Okay, he's a registered Republican, but he's this. I don't even know that matters so much. It does seem like this woman, the state representative who was murdered, I mean, she had just voted against, like you said, this illegal. By the way, let me just add one thing about illegal immigrant health care. This is a stat that flabbergasts people when I bring it up. But in New York City, now this was like 10 years ago, it was revealed that the city pays, and this was a while ago already, between basically $2.5 and $3 billion a year just on illegal immigrant health care. So think if that's probably like closer to 4 or 5 billion. I mean, that's totally bizarre. It's a very expensive thing to do. So, you know, I can understand why the people of Minnesota, you know, the sensible people of Minnesota wouldn't want that. I guess it's the type of thing that drives people crazy. I mean, you remember in the 2020 run up to the 2020 election, they asked all the Democratic candidates for the nomination, would you support giving free health care to illegal immigrants? And they all raised their hand. They're like, yes, we all like that. So that is a hot topic, which typically the Dems try to keep under wraps because the cost is insane. But I don't know what to think of that guy. I guess we'll find out. I mean, they arrested him. He's not dead.
Yeah, well, we will. I just searched while you were talking, Seth. Over $9 billion of free health care in California.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a tremendous amount of money, and it's the people, the workers that are shouldering that free. I can see why they get upset. Let me turn back to New York with you just for a minute. Two stories: Leticia James and Mayor Eric Adams. Leticia James, what are your thoughts on her? Now there is just so much evidence that she was committing mortgage fraud, while at the same time trying to put a former president in jail for the rest of his life on mortgage fraud. Your thoughts on that?
I've known Leticia James for a long time. When she was in the city council, I mean, she's known for being kind of lazy, and you know, she just talks a big game, but she's not. There's no real substance there. You know, personally, when she was going after Trump for, you know, this bogus supposedly, you know, whatever with the checks that he was assigning to this place or that place. I'm sorry, that was the other case. With her, it was that he misstated the size of his apartment, and thus Deutsche Bank got cheated, even though he paid them back all the money. That was absurd. She ran for office promising that she, as Attorney General, would go through the Trump Organization records and find something to prosecute him for. Now, that's just not the American way. I mean, that's the way it worked under Stalin. You know, show me the man and I'll find you the crime. The fact that she ran on that basis, I mean, that entire case should have just been dismissed out of hand. And shortly it will be. It doesn't, that case is not going to hold up. It doesn't make any sense. Even the appeals court said, has this ever been done before? Has anyone ever been prosecuted for this in this way? No, obviously not. Yeah, and it does seem as though she did say that this house that she and her father or a cousin were buying in Virginia She said on the forums that it was going to be her primary residence. And when you say that, well, then you get all kinds of, you get a lower mortgage rate. There's various insurance advantages. I guess we'll have to see what happens with that. It sounds pretty bad. She's always been a bit of a grifter. There was a case years ago. I think you'll like this. I think she was just a city council. She was a city council person at the time. She was jaywalking, crossing into the street between parked cars, and she bumped her leg on a trailer hitch that was sticking out maybe a couple of inches farther than it should have. And so she hurt herself. And she sued this guy who was this day laborer who basically just used his truck to go around and pick up discarded radiators and things like that, like scrap metal. And she was suing him because she bumped into his trailer hitch while crossing the street illegally. I mean, this is the type of person she is. I think eventually she dropped the case after it became embarrassing. But I remember the guy saying, what is she doing? Why is she suing me? I mean, he was this black guy. He was just this black guy who made no money and used his truck to, like I said, pick up scrap metal. So that's the type of person she is. Vindictive, petty, self-righteous. So look, if she goes down over this mortgage fraud thing, I'll think it's great. I don't know. Some people say that she retracted the statement that it was going to be her primary residence. I don't know. At first face, it looks pretty bad.
Yeah. What about, I'm reading that Mayor Eric Adams is saying, hey, we're paying way too much money for these illegal immigrants. We need to work with the Trump administration. I wanted to work with Biden to slow it down. Now I want to work with Trump to remove them. Meanwhile, you have Governor Kathy Hochul saying, oh no, we're going to fight ICE every step of the way. We're against Trump. We're going to fight for these people. The taxpayers can afford to keep giving them a good life. What do you think about the battle between the mayor and the governor?
I mean, look, the two of them are both so awful that it's hard to explain to people who don't live in a one-party state like New York what the real effects of that are, because you wind up with the worst people, because they're not competing against anybody except other people in their party, and typically the other people in their party are so far left that they can't necessarily get elected. Kathy Hochul is an accident. She was made lieutenant governor by Andrew Cuomo when he wanted to have a woman on the ticket who was not going to be impressive, and that was her. She was just this nobody. I mean, she'd been a congresswoman. I think she was appointed congresswoman after somebody else died or got kicked out in a scandal. Prior to that, she'd been a county clerk. I mean, she's nobody. And she's a terrible governor. She has no oomph. She has no gravitas. She just postures about whatever the hard left line is. Eric Adams, in a way, I have more sympathy for him. Yes, he tries to be pragmatic. He tries to be somebody who's just willing to work with anyone, but he's not a good mayor. I mean, it's bizarre. He's like the incumbent mayor, and he's not even, he's running for re-election, but he's not seeking the Democratic nomination because it was clear he was not going to get it because the hard left hates him. I said this before he came in, and I told people at newspapers and all sorts of people who were backing him, I said, look, I get why you're backing him, because he's not he doesn't want to defund the police. But at the same time, he's kooky. He's got all kinds of weird habits, and he's a strange guy. And what's going to happen is he's going to come in, he's going to screw everything up. And then the hard left is going to say, see, this is what happens when you elect a cop, because he's a former police captain. This is why you can't elect cops. Now we really need to have a socialist takeover. And that's exactly where we're at now. So, look, Adams was better than the alternative, which was like a radical George Soros funded lawyer and a total radical. But I mean, New York is in a terrible state politically. We're really like verging towards like catastrophe. But what can I do? I can't do anything about it, and people seem to like it. They seem to be all in favor of going full steam into this vision of luxury communism, where everything is publicly owned. There's no profit, but everybody gets everything they want. So I guess we'll get it good and hard if that's what they want.
Yeah, wow, that's an interesting term, luxury communism. Maybe that should be your next book. In our
but yeah,
in our remaining minutes, Seth, you've got a book coming out. We're still kind of early on it, but tell me just briefly, what is Weaponized going to be about?
Weaponized. It's called Weaponized: the left's seizure of state power. And look, we've talked about weaponization over the last 5 years in regard to how the left weaponized the legal system to go after Trump. Lawfare, they call it, like a version of war using the law, like with Leticia James, with the FBI, and so forth. But I'm looking at how other institutions have been weaponized by the left to promote basically, a communist agenda and to take over American society and reshape it. I mean, part of the problem for them is that they can control the federal government or major institutions, but at the local level, local communities still have some power. So I look at 4 institutions. I look at, basically the borders or the national question, policing, education, and housing. And housing is interesting because it seems really kind of boring, like, housing policy, zoning. But this is really key to the left's ambitions, because what they hate more than anything are suburbs, communities where people, live quiet lives the way they want to, where they can control. Look, obviously, we don't want just outright racist, housing policy. People aren't allowed to do that, but that's established. What the left wants to do is force, communities to put in large low-income housing and to force density onto communities. People like suburbs because they like a lot of space. The left hates that. They hate cars. They hate yards. They hate everything that basically normal Americans kind of want for their families. So I look at that. I look at the borders and sanctuary jurisdictions, which again are a way to fight. In a way, borders and zoning are very similar in that it's the left saying, you don't get to decide who lives where you are. You don't get to decide how your communities function. So the same way Americans don't get to decide who comes to America, that's up to them. And you don't get to decide who where they live or what they do. You also don't get to decide what your community looks like. We're going to force you. We're going to sue you until you put, large developments in the center of your town. Education is obvious. This is something that the Democrats see as like their huge wedge. This is how they're going to, basically corrupt the youth of America. They hate homeschooling. They hate religious education. They hate charter schools. And finally, policing, which the left, as we hear in these rallies, they're still committed to defunding the police. So basically, that's what the book is about. It's just looking at these different areas where the left is using its power to gain more power.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to put a link to that down below so people can check it out, as well as your X profile so that people can follow you online. Good luck with the new job over at the Post. I know you're up for the task. Seth Barron, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, Stephen. Thanks for having me.